Get ready to Bomba!
Welcome to Bomba Live, the show you've been waiting for. This is your host, Ray Collazo, on top of Philadelphia at the iconic Pyramid Club. I'm here with my co-host, the NewsJawn, Vanessa Maria Gray. What's up, Vanessa?
Hello, hello, hello.
Vanessa, can you school people, especially outside of Philadelphia, about your incredible brand? Talk to us about how you became the NewsJawn, because that's talk about right on point.
Well, a John, for people that don't know, it's a Philly word, right? And a Philly word for anything. So whatchamacallit, thingy-majingy. John can be used for anything. But John is also used a lot when men talk about women. They say like, oh, that John.
That John.
It's kind of like shorty, right? Like shorty's another
wifey,
word. That John over there. And, out there when I was doing my thing, somebody said, oh, yeah, the news John. And he was referring to me, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm the news John."
I like
and
that.
so it was not taken on Twitter. So I was like, "I like that." I
like
wasn't
it too.
insulted by that. I was like, "I love that you called me the news John." He's like, "Oh, I couldn't remember your name." So
see, Taylor's old enough to remember. Him and I remember when the Channel 6 WPVI, the big ABC affiliate here in Philly, there's that news van. Remember the news van thing? It was like news van. So anyway, it hits the point, because you definitely are the news John, Philly, no doubt.
Right. You could be a coffee John. You could be a singing John, like
oh yeah,
podcast John. So if it's not taken yet, look it up. But speaking of production Johns, I want to shout out SBX Productions and Taylor Cordatis for helping us produce our show today.
I want to shout out definitely SBX Productions. Definitely check them out if you're looking to not only be part of the Pyramid Club, Content Club, and you're looking to kind of expand your brand with content. I want to shout out Karina Livier, who's when I go to California and do shows, she's our co-host out there, our California correspondent. She reached out to me the other day and said, "You've done something with the show. The lighting is better." And I'm like, wow, you really have a real eye. And I'm like, in fact, Taylor's been souping it up out here.
The lighting, the audio, the HD, like all of it.
Yeah, no, they've been killing it. So later on in the show, we're going to get into the WEPA segment, get into some big Puerto Rican events that have happened on the calendar, kind of debrief on that. The presenter segment, some cultural headlines, some folks, including one in particular icon in our community we got to get a little love to. But first, we got to get right into the Found in Translation segment, because, Vanessa, there's some political headlines we really got to update people on.
Yeah, well, you always have the 411 on everything that's happening legislatively in Washington. And in the last couple of weeks, there has been a lot of talk and discussion about immigration and a lot of movement on things happening on the border. It's once again being used as a political wedge issue. And I think it's going to be a core campaign issue in the presidential election. Can you give us an update and tell us what's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot there. Thank you, Vanessa. So basically, for the last 2-3 months, the White House and generally speaking, everyone except House Republicans have been very interested in passing a legislation for aid for Ukraine and Israel. And we can certainly debate; those are separate conversations. But in the middle of those negotiations, and particularly the White House's fervor to try to get some aid passed for our foreign policy agenda, they put border enforcement, and I'm saying that very purposely. They didn't really put immigration as an issue on the table. They put border enforcement on the table for negotiations. Fast forward, what we expect in the coming days, and probably by the time you already see this, is a Senate bill that would include, some of these aid packages, but in particular, a very what we expect to be a very right-wing border security measures that would go even well beyond strategies around curbing the movement of asylum seekers into our country. So we're talking about mass deportations, potentially, of people that a long time undocumented, much higher bars for entry for potential asylum seekers, and a myriad of other triggers that would potentially seal the border at times, and oftentimes depending on the movement. And all the while, and again, part of the dynamic here is we don't really know yet, or we haven't known until it's released, is that there's no indication that there's any relief for the long time undocumented, particularly our dreamers and people that have been here literally decades and have been very well integrated into our economy and our cultural fabric. Many of these people have citizen children and spouses. And so I want to ask Vanessa. So the politics of this are very bad. And one example of why this is so bad is, why are we, why are we, why was this put on the table by the Democrats in the White House to begin with? But one example of why this is so troubling is that, Vanessa, in months of negotiations on this, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, which represents the Democratic delegation of Latino leaders in the Senate and the House, has not even been invited to the table. So this has been a closed door, behind behind the scenes negotiation. Some of you may have seen Congresswoman Nanette Barragan, who is the head of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, on the Sunday shows, basically airing their frustration publicly around the falta de respeto. So the politics of this suck on a lot of levels. I mean, for basically the only thing Republicans and Trump has is trying to demonize Latinos and other communities. But I wanted to ask you, Vanessa, on the media side of this, what's really troubling is the media characterization of these immigrants who are overwhelming women and children, families, people seeking asylum, families just seeking a better life, as invading and this troubling narrative around dehumanizing people that are in a humanitarian crisis.
Yeah, it's very concerning. And of course, groups like the Hispanic Media Coalition and the National Association of Hispanic Journalists and other groups have spoken publicly about the way that news media cover the immigration story. And there's a few issues. One is that a lot of times immigrants are only covered in the context of, what's happening at the border and emigrating to the United States. There's not a lot of coverage of immigrants here in the United States contributing to society, doing amazing things, innovating, and building the economy. And we know that since the beginning, right? Like there's always been millions of immigrants coming to the United States to make our country better. And they're not just Latino immigrants, right? They're coming from all over the world. And it often invisibilizes, immigrants from other continents like Africa and Asia and even Europe. So that's one problem. The second issue is the language that's used. They're still using illegal immigrants, aliens, and now some of our elected officials are even, trying to mislead people into thinking that the majority of the people coming into the country are criminals or they're terrorists. And this isn't backed by data at all. And so there's not a lot of pushback or accountability from media to correct that disinformation. And lastly, this idea of only showing images of suffering, of struggle, of criminality is also really problematic as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it gives the perception that immigrants are just this way, and it doesn't tell the full story. And one of the other things that's really interesting is that many, a significant number of the immigrants coming are women and children. So this idea that they're criminals, that they're terrorists, that they're not contributing, that they're going to be sucking the economy dry and stealing your jobs. These are all really harmful, negative stereotypes that are used by, people who are frankly quite racist and are afraid that it's going to change our demographic and our population. But I have news for you. It's happening anyway, whether or not we open the borders. The population is going to be changing. And I think that's actually what's beautiful about our country, how diverse it is, and all of the wonderful things and culture and intelligence that people bring to our country. So it's up to us, media activists like me and journalists, to really shift the narrative and to make sure we're telling a fuller, more accurate picture of Latinos and immigrants just, in general.
There's been a lot of courageous community journalists, activists like yourself, Vanessa, and I think about people like Julio Varela that have been sounding the alarm around this lack of nuance and understanding in newsrooms. We're going to talk about kind of the state of our media in a second, around them, major media outlets that should have the resources and have the cultural competency to really cover the true story about what's happening on the border, the impacts of the climate change on this conversation, our lack of care for Latin American policy, always kind of being an afterthought in our foreign policy agenda for decades, and that's been a bipartisan issue. And so all these things are kind of coming to a head. And all the while, to your point, the imagery around, immigrants being shipped by bad actors like Texas Governor Greg Abbott to New York City and Chicago, and the media loves to, a lot of brown people sitting on a sidewalk and sitting in line, looking tattered, it's like crisis porn, and these people deserve a lot more dignity than they're receiving, and we deserve to tell people the truth, which is, if you have economic anxiety, you have anxiety about the future of our country. If you've been, if you feel like the election was stolen, none of that has to do. Even if you believe those things, these folks who are just seeking a better life, who again are here. This is not even the face of what the stereotype of immigration was the which was the Mexican guy just trying to go over to make some money to send back to his family. This is the actual family coming, oftentimes because for very serious asylum reasons. But that's the other thing we wanted to touch on is that the state of the media is in crisis, and I think the LA Times, but there's some other news outlets, has some very significant cuts that not just impact in general this conversation around the state of our media that you just referenced, but also like the state of diverse voices in our media.
Yeah, I want to connect the previous subject to what we're talking about now, which is that we have a really big problem with Latinos and especially Spanish language people in this country not having access to news and information. It's why we do our show, right?
That's right.
Like we want to be able to serve that community. Secondly, Latinos are disproportionately affected by disinformation, right? So there is a lot of disinformation
In both languages.
yeah, not just about us, right, but targeted towards us, especially on platforms like YouTube and Facebook. Um, and at the same time, we don't have enough Spanish language media outlets or media outlets that are serving Latinos. And in mainstream media newsrooms, we certainly don't have enough representation of not just Latinos, but people of color in general. So that's the context in which we're operating in. And in the last year, we've seen significant cuts to major newsrooms across the country. And part of my day job is, doing advocacy work, organizing journalists, advocating for them, because the reality is that thousands of them are losing their jobs right now. And that's because newspapers have been changed by the internet and they no longer have a monopoly on the ad market or the information market. Sites like Google and Bing to a lesser extent,
Yeah.
On Facebook, they're getting a lot of that ad revenue. At the same time, these CEOs are making a lot more money compared to the average worker. And so where we see cuts, are in layoffs, right? Whenever there's a loss. And so the big story last week was that the LA Times laid off over 100 workers. I think it was 115 total. And that was a decision of their billionaire owner, Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong. And these layoffs account for more than 20% of the newsroom, but they disproportionately fell on people of color. And out of those 115, 94 were unionized employees. So right before that, they had to walk out to try to save their jobs. Seems like they were able to reduce the number of layoffs by a little bit, but the continued with the layoffs anyway. And this resulted in over a third of workers of color getting laid off. So the Black, the Latinx, the AAPI, Middle Eastern and Arab American caucuses of the LA Times issued a joint statement, and each of their groups had at least a third of their members laid off. So that's a third of the newsroom.
And they had is it De Los? They had like a Spanish language supplemental section that got hammered pretty bad.
That was gutted. The Washington bureau of the LA Times was closed in an election year.
No, and we're talking, not just quantity, but some of the most admired Latinos, particularly from my perspective, Latina journalists in the space. Susie Esposito is kind of my go-to for the pop culture stuff, and formerly the Rolling Stone. Jean Guerrero, mitad Boricua. I would kind of put in a Juan Gonzalez of her generation kind of context. Real someone that's just been a fantastic opinion writer and really being a voice for the voiceless. It's just been so sad to see the human toll on them, and with this jarring announcement. Vanessa, what's been the reaction, and how are we? What can we do to support the Latino and diverse journalism communities right now? Because I know it's been a really tough time.
Yeah, I think we're all very scared, right? There's not a lot of job security when it comes to working in newspapers and magazines. I also just want to share that there's layoffs at Time, Pitchfork,
Yeah.
Condé Nast, which owns a lot of different magazines, Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated's done, basically.
Yeah, like most of their staffs.
Yeah.
And the Washington Post proposed to lay off more than 200 workers,
I saw
and
that.
their
Wow.
employees went on strike as well. There's a labor organizing component to this, and I think that we
Yeah.
need to be in solidarity with workers, not just in the journalism industry, but across the board. We just saw UPS lay off 12,000 workers after they had made major gains in their contract. And so I think, again, we need to be in solidarity with workers who are organizing in a union or without a union. And we need to do whatever we can, working at nonprofits to advocate for journalism as a public good, to make the case that journalism is good for democracy, that we need to make significant investments that are outside of corporate billionaire ownership in order to maintain that. Fund projects like ours, like Philly Cam, where we
Yeah,
started,
no doubt.
public media. We're always divesting, every year PBS and NPR are on the chopping block, like,
Yeah.
at the legislative level.
AC Trump gonna forget it. Maybe
Right.
go
And
away.
we need more
completely.
resources for
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, right? So that we can
Yeah.
start our own programs and shows. So if you're a business owner out there, sponsor programs like these
No
or
doubt.
other people who are, trying to make it happen. And, we also, that's why we try to support our colleagues and our peers who
No
are
doubt.
in this, because
No doubt about it.
it's really hard. And I think if you support a paper or magazine or whatever, pay the subscription fee. Everyone's always trying to get stuff for free,
Yeah.
but then you'll go to Starbucks and get like a $6 latte. And, some of these subscriptions are affordable. So do pay for the service. I subscribe to a couple media outlets every month. I support like Wikipedia, for example. It's like,
Hey.
it's $3 a month,
As much as
I
we
give
use
them.
it,
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's like I use it almost every day. There's
No
other
doubt.
programs, just
Yeah.
like support it, fund it. If you see people like Bianca Graulau, who has a Patreon or a
Support her,
GoFundMe
yeah.
to support their journalism, do that. So that's what I recommend. Support your neighborhood community journalists also, and definitely, share the message.
Before we shout out our sponsor, which is right in line with what Vanessa was just talking about, I just wanted to note also, going back to the political conversation, is that we'll see when this show gets released what exactly is happening in Washington, but there's a very good chance that the Republicans in the House on the congressional side will still be blocking moving any of these issues. And so that's not only going to put more pressure and more of a spotlight on this immigration conversation, but also it's just going to put a lot of pressure on the Biden administration because of the 8 issues impacting, in Ukraine and in the Middle East. So more to come on that, but definitely pay attention to why certain things aren't moving and the rhetoric around immigrants and the immigrant community. Before we get into a quick break and then later on the WEPA segment, Vanessa wanted to shout out our sponsor for the show. Speak about people that keep it real. Our friends at the Latin Podcast Awards. You got to check out at Latin Podcast or latinpodcast.com. The nominations are open now, Vanessa, for 2024.
Can we self-nominate?
Yes, you can. That's encouraged. We were so blessed in 2022 to win the award for Latin Podcast for Best Video Podcast. And that was even before Taylor was around. So we're definitely going to be strong contenders, I believe, this year. Definitely check out at Latin Podcast at latinpodcast.com. Vanessa, you've been one of the real leaders in our space around the power of audio content. So I know this collaboration with the Latin Podcast Awards is very important to you.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is people say, how do I find your show? How do I find shows like this? This is a really great platform. If you look at the award winners and nominees, it'll show you who these people are, how to access their programs. So I definitely recommend, if you're looking for Latino content, go to their page and check it out. And I love audio. I've always been a radio, podcast, audiophile, because you can do other things, right? You can drive, you can wash dishes, but also it's extremely accessible. Like a lot of our older folks, their vision, their reading ability is not so good. Not everybody has high literacy rate, right? That's why audio is accessible to anybody. You don't have to have a reading capability in order to hear something. And a lot of these podcasts are free, right? There's no paywalls associated with them. And that's why I love a lot of the YouTube content that we can access. So this and many other reasons. I think there's also like the imagination when you listen to
Yeah,
something
that's true.
that really intrigues me about audio content and podcasts. So, yeah, definitely check out our friends at the Latino Podcast Awards and check out the nominees and award winners if you want to find a great show.
No doubt. Shout out to Jason Enriquez. He's a former award winner as well. First, first take, second place podcast, I believe it is. He's in Jersey. He wants to collaborate with Bomba Live. He's really excited about our being for alums of being award winners. So shout out to Jason and the Latin Podcast Award community. We're going to take a quick break, watch a best of Bomba Live clip, and we come back. We're going to start our Wepa segment here on Bomba Live, the show you've been waiting for.
Lord, like, where's like my people, And then here go Mom Dukes running with the phone, like taking pictures and stuff. And he had to like put me in my place and was like, you may not have everybody, but you have one solid one.
That's right.
And I need you to look at it when it comes to my life, because look at my life. When I was here on earth, I only had 12, and even those 12 weren't even solid. And
see, that's Camden
and-
philosophy right there. Y'all don't
yeah.
know.
And
why
they
you're
weren't even solid. And he said, and look at how people view me in the world. Like, not everybody views me in the best light either. That say that they walk with me too. But you have that one. That's all you need is that one. So don't worry about that your friends are not there or your family not there. Like, I already molded that person that's going to be with you through everything when it comes to this.
Welcome back to Bomba Live, the show that you've been waiting for. I'm Vanessa Maria, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Ray Collazo.
Appreciate you, Vanessa. Thank you. The NewsJawn herself said that.
Tell me
verified.
about this wonderful jersey I have. Shout out to Caguas.
No doubt. Los campeones máximos. So the Cagos Criollos is a winter ball team in the Puerto Rican Winter League. It's where my grandfather's from. It's the reason we're big baseball fans. And so I'm wearing this not only in honor of Los Criollos, which won the Puerto Rican Winter League Championship this year and is going to be playing in the Caribbean Series, but I'm wearing this in honor of this gentleman, the icon of icons in the Puerto Rican community and baseball world,
Roberto Clemente.
who, even though he's known and was discovered by the LA Dodgers, actually, when he played with Los Cangrejeros de Santurce, he did play a few seasons with Los Criollos. I wore this, the last time I wore this jersey, Vanessa, I was actually honored to be invited by Grupo 21, which is a group of Washington, D.C. based Puerto Rican leaders that promote public service, promote diversity and inclusion in federal government and in public and in civil society. And so they asked me to moderate a panel featuring Roberto Clemente Jr. and some other dignitaries to talk about Roberto Clemente's legacy 51 years after him passing away. So just a tremendous honor to spend some time with the Clemente family. Much love and much respect to Javier Cuevas, the founder of Grupo 21, his wonderful family, his wonderful leadership team. I'm honored to be part of the group in an advisory capacity. We have leaders all over the country and on the island that are part of that wonderful Grupo 21 familia. And, it was cool because all these Santurce fans, Loale Ponce, Javier's the Indios de Mayagüez fan, and, we won the championship again. Yadier Molina, the legendary baseball player, future Hall of Famer, is our coach. Alex Cora, the manager of the Red Sox, is kind of like a advisor behind the scenes, Caguas guy. So, we're a heady bunch in Caguas. So, I'm happy to rock it and celebrate a moment, Clemente's wonderful legacy.
Did you learn anything new about baseball or about Roberto Clemente when you were hanging out with all those folks?
It was heavy. There's a couple things. One is that shout out to Antonio Tijerino. Tony is that of the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, which is a group that they do the Kennedy Honors every year, and they do a lot of wonderful work in our community, and a great partner of ours. Antonio is Nicaraguan, and so that's the country that Roberto was going to support earthquake victims when the tragedy happened. And so he talked his perspective being a Nicaraguan baby when that was all happening, and how Roberto's legacy in his life personally, but in the Nicaraguan community, is really heavy. And then there was a gentleman there, and I don't have his name here. I'm sure Javier will let me know. We can share another time. But there was a gentleman there that was a family friend of the Clementes. He talked about how no one ever talked enough about the suffering that the children had because, yes, their dad was an icon. Yes, he was famous, but they didn't have their dad. And so now Roberto Clemente Jr., being a man in his early 50s, reflecting on that, and I'm literally sitting there next to him. He's getting emotional, and it was a real heavy moment. And so I think that it's incredible what there was a conversation about his time that Martin Luther King went to visit the family on the island, which I didn't know too much about. So it's amazing that not just Clemente, he's obvious, but the elders in our community have done so much, and it's so important for us to have platforms like that to share those stories and that history.
Yeah, well, those hidden histories, right? Like they're so important to share so we can pass on to the younger folks who don't know a lot about Roberto Clemente. So I'm glad you're able to go there and hang out with some other sports fans. You and your family members are big sports people.
Yes, we are. But Vanessa, the other thing is on the music side, our homie PJ Sin Suela was there.
Oh, wow.
PJ was in the house. He got honored. Shout out to Noreli Garcia, who's a part of the family, Ponceña, their fam. So she got him to come up. So I got to hang out with PJ, which was really cool. And we'll get more into that in the Presente segment. Vanessa, in this Wepa segment, I talk to you because I've recently become a dog owner again. And I kind of think of you as our quintessential Puerto Rican dog lover in the Bomba Life fam.
This is true.
So, Vanessa, it occurred to me that the Puerto Rican dog owning culture is kind of it's a vibe. So can you help us break this down, because we're real special when it comes to take care of our pets.
So it's really funny what I've noticed, because I always try to find other dog people, who like understand what it's like to be a dog owner, dog mom. And I found at least with Puerto Ricans, there's two kinds of dogs that they have. Usually they either have a pit bull like I do, like I have a pit bull.
No doubt.
And I live in North Philly, and I live on a block that's mostly Puerto Ricans. And don't you know, every single one of them has a pit bull on the block. So I was delighted.
Not to be stereotypical, but I'm not surprised.
I mean, they're wonderful dogs. Everyone knows I love my dog so much. The other type of dog is a little dog, like a
Chihuahua. Like I got a Pomeranian. Yeah.
See, there you go. I hate to stereotype you, but there we go.
Yeah, I'm starting small and I'll work my way up.
But
there's no middle. It's either like, they can tackle you or they can fit in your purse. There's nothing
I don't
between.
see Puerto Ricans with like golden retrievers or poodles, or like I go to the dog park when a lot of white people, and they have all these like French these special dogs.
No.
It's either pit bull or like
it's
Chihuahua,
like our boxing. We're either the
Pomeranian.
small weights or the big guys. We're not too good in the middle. Vanessa, you were telling me off camera that Puerto Ricans on the island have a very special relationship with dogs.
Okay, so there's some big differences between, I would say even just like Latinos here in the U.S. and Latinos in other countries and in Puerto Rico, which is like in many countries, like even when I was in Cuba and Puerto Rico, like dogs roam around the neighborhood. There's a lot of stray dogs. The dogs eat rice and beans and pollo frito. So, like the dogs have a lot more autonomy too. They run the neighborhood. And they're not inside because it's warm outside, the temperature. So the idea that my dog sleeps with me in my bed like horrifies some of my family members. They're like, "¿Tú tienes ese perro en la cama?" I'm like, "Yeah, to protect me. He's there to watch out, but also he's warm and he's cuddly and like he's my family." And this is like really gross to them and weird. Even just having perros arriba, right? Like in the house.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want dogs in the house. A lot of dogs are like chained up, So it's very different. And I have a friend to me, she's not Puerto Rican, but she's Mexican. And, at the time she hadn't been in the United States like very long. And she commented and said, "You guys have a weird relationship with your dogs." And I said, "Well, yeah, they're part of the family." She's like, "I know, but in Mexico, we don't have entire supermarkets for the dogs." And I said, "Supermarket?" She's like, "Yeah, like the PetSmart. Isn't that a dog supermarket?"
PetSmart, that's my go-to right there. I'm living in that place now.
And I said, "Well, I hadn't thought of it as a dog supermarket, but indeed it is a dog supermarket." So, our interactions here, like we treat them like children. Like,
and you were telling me you make table food. You hook up the dog with table food. You don't have regular dog.
Okay, so again, like there's all these stereotypical videos on Instagram about like Hispanic women or Hispanic moms and their dogs. And I'm one of those people. I put my dog in sweaters, and I
not
give
combating
him
stereotypes on this
yeah,
one.
I make him chicken and rice and sweet potatoes.
Qué chula,
Él es
qué
el
chula.
príncipe de casa. el
Claro,
nene de
claro, he's the
mami.
oldest boy.
So I'm that person.
I love it.
And even though he's a bull, he's still my baby. But I'm also in these videos. You'll see them the way that they yell at the dogs, and it's like my dog will go into trash, and I've seen videos where it's like, "Mira, tú hiciste eso." I mean, like they'll talk to the dog like it's a kid and punish him, like go in the corner. I was like, oh my gosh, I do that with my dog.
That's awesome.
So. I love the culture that we have, with our dogs and the relationship. And I don't care. I'm a stereotypical dog mom.
There you go.
My advice to you is to, spend some time training. And there's a lot of YouTube videos and books.
Been working on it.
The most famous dog guy, Cesar Milan,
Yeah.
right? The dog whisperer.
I gotta catch up with that brother. Yeah.
I read his book and
Was it helpful to you?
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
All of those
Awesome.
tactics work. The number one thing being that dogs need a lot of exercise. So, but congratulations on the newest member of your family.
Cora.
La nena de papi.
Yes, Cora. Real quick on the Presente segment, wanted to shout out a few people. Vanessa, Chita Rivera, rest in peace, icon of icons. I mean, I'm not a Broadway big, but might be the go to Broadway.
Okay,
period.
so I want to share a few things about Chita Rivera because she is icon. For y'all young people that don't know, let me school you real quick. This is the original Latina Broadway star. She originated the role of Vera on Chicago. She was the original Anita in West Side Story.
Original Kiss of the Spider Woman.
She won Tony Award for Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Became a big movie.
And she was in many, many other Broadway stars. She won a lot of Tony Awards, including the Lifetime Achievement Award. She was the first Latina to get the Kennedy presidential honor. She got another honor from Obama. So she's what inspired many other people in their careers. And she was a Boricua. She was from Washington, D.C.
That's right.
And she was at before J-Lo. Way before J-Lo, Chita Rivera, she could dance, she could sing, and she could act.
Our fan Betty D, great inspiration with Chita Rivera. There's no Irene Cara, there's no Lisa, there's no J-Lo, to your point, no Rosie Perez. Talk about dancing.
She was a classically trained ballerina. How many Puerto Rican ballerinas do we see?
Back in the 50s. This woman was 91. She was still on Broadway till the other day. This woman had an incredible legacy.
She had a fabulous, aesthetic. Like she always looked amazing.
Fashion icon.
Yes,
Chita was tremenda.
So shout out to Chita Rivera.
Hey, she lived a great life. God bless
queen,
her.
But
God
definitely one of my favorites.
Wanted to shout out. I want to again shout out real quick my man PJ Sin Suela. My favorite Spanish language rapper at this point. Just not only a tremendous artist, but a medical doctor in Ponce, and actually is doing a lot around taking care of your animals and pets on the island. So he's also a dog lover and activist in that area as well. So just an honor to meet him. Definitely want to have him on the show. Want to shout out really quickly Eladio Carrion, my man from Macau, one of my other towns that I represent. Came out with a new album. It's actually a homenaje to his mother, Sol Maria. He's got a very fascinating story. Eladio actually was a junior Olympic swimmer, then became a Vine social media star, and now is a humongous rap star. So definitely check out his album. Hey Little Mama is the one that, even if you're not into Spanish rap, check that one out for Alejandro. So Vanessa, you get the final word here on this great edition of Bomba Live.
Well, I want to plug J-Lo's new single too, and her new music video, because I stand J-Lo, our queen. So
No doubt.
I just wanted to shout out because for being 54.
Oh, J-Lo, that's another story.
I'm inspired. Like, even this newest video, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
But I want to end the show by encouraging people to support their local Latino businesses.
Yes.
One of our collaborators and friends is the National Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce. And in Philly, we're going to start Restaurant Week. This is a slow time of year for a lot of businesses. That's why they have Restaurant Week in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And it's just really important that we support one another. So, a lot of these corporate-owned, billionaire-owned businesses, they're not kind to their workers. Support your Latino entrepreneur, business owner, and all the people out there hustling who are trying to start a business and establish themselves. They need our support and our love.
And if you got a business out there, especially in the Philadelphia area, especially a restaurant, you want, let's work something out. We love to do some live remotes. I know Taylor wants some rice and beans and, some maduros. So we got to hook a brother up. So thank you, Vanessa. The NewsJawn, definitely follow her on social media and all of her various platforms and shows. Thank you, Taylor Cordatis and SBX Productions. And thank you so much, Bomba Live family. We've been hearing more and more from you. You're appreciating the regular content, and we really appreciate all the, trust me, the DMs, the messages, the quick words really keep us inspired, and we know we're on the right track. Subscribe to Bomba Live on YouTube and have a wonderful day.